Hi, I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders. And this week, we're going to take a look at the U.S. Senate Democratic primary. We've got the most recent reports on fundraising from the Federal Elections Commission. And we've had a chance to see the candidates out there in the field for a few months now. Chuck, how do you size up the race?
Well, first of all, table stakes these days in statewide elections at a minimum are having $1 million in the bank. And basically, you've got three candidates who are in that category. Lasry, who can do significantly more than that. Mandela Barnes, who has come out of the gate and done a really good job on fundraising. And Sarah Godlewski, who's put some money in, but also has raised some money and is in that category. I think to that group, you have to add Tom Nelson, who I think is one of the hardest working people in politics on either side of the aisle, and actually comes out of the Fox River Valley, which is the place where, you know, that media market is where Democrats historically have either won or lost, and Republicans have won or lost statewide elections. And he's a hardworking guy, and he's doing remarkably well on his fundraising for a guy who isn't maybe at the top of the radar screen, but some people have described him as kind of the Russ Feingold in this race, fighting against the two bigger competitors in the primary. There are a few other candidates, but they haven't caught on yet. Is there a chance that they could? Yes, some event could happen. But frankly, unless you get to that point where you have $1 million that you can put on TV, digital, et cetera, you're going to be hard pressed to beat those three candidates, because you've got, you know, a variety of different representations. You've got men, you've got women, you've got people of color, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that what you're going to see is a continued battle by these people going forward. And I think you're going to see those four probably coalesce at the end of the year. The question will be, after they start getting into having actually some advertising done, and you notice that Lasry has gotten an ad out already, what will that mean in terms of polling? And will polling maybe dry up the money for one or the other of the candidates, and at that point put them in a position where they'll pull out? But I think it's entirely possible that you could have anywhere from 2, but I think more likely 3 to 6 people on the ballot when the election comes, with at least 3 of them at that point having a shot at winning. So I think it's early, but I think you're seeing that there's still a pretty broad field.
Well, you know, I'm an outsider in this race, but from my perspective, it looks to me like Sarah Godlewski continues to underperform. You said she made the $1 million threshold. She did because she wrote a check herself for $1 million. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made that threshold, which is fascinating. Alex Lasry is sort of competing in some ways with Tom Nelson for labor endorsements around the state and labor support, which is very valuable in a Democratic primary. But you know, he put a bunch of money on television. I don't know at this point if that actually, maybe it vaulted him to second place, but it's not like it put him in charge of the race. Clearly the person in charge of the race, the front runner here, is Mandela Barnes, which is astonishing to me. But Mandela Barnes leads in every category, really. He's raised the most money among the candidates, not counting self-contributions. He's collected the most endorsements. He's out there getting lots of progressive support, which is important in a Democratic primary, and he's traveling the state and seems to be doing pretty well with the grassroots. So I would argue that Mandela Barnes is sort of winning in all categories at this point that matter in a Democratic primary.
I think be very afraid when you hear Scott Jensen say Sarah Godlewski is underperforming. That probably tells you that she's probably the best candidate for the Democrats.
Oh, she is the one. Oh yeah, I said that months ago. I think she's the one I worry about in the general election, but she's not doing well here. Mandela is the one I'm looking forward to having be the Democratic nominee.
Well, I think there are a variety of reasons why each of these candidates brings something strong to the ticket. Sarah Godlewski, obviously Democrats rely on women. Mandela Barnes obviously has a broad appeal, a surprisingly broad appeal from some people's perspective, but also should bring out minority communities. Alex Lasry has a very deep pocketbook and has done a lot of good things that he'll be able to tout in his record. And the Milwaukee Bucks success is his success. And Thomas Nelson, coming from the Fox River Valley and being, you know, the person who has a lot of history and also is a really hard worker. These are all good people. And then even some of the other candidates are good. I just don't know how they get traction. I think the big thing is, I think over the next 4 months or so, you're going to see some separation, and it'll be interesting to see then, are there any people here who want to drop out and add their voice to someone else or not? And as I've mentioned before, the smartest person in the U.S. Senate primary is the one who drops out and runs for the lieutenant governor. That's a pretty winnable race. And then all you got to have is a victory by Tony Evers, and you'll likely be the nominee for governor after that, because the lieutenant governor will get a big leg up, just as Mandela Barnes, who was the lieutenant governor for Tony Evers, got a huge leg up in this U.S. Senate primary.
Well, we'll see. We'll check in on this one again next time something interesting happens.
See you next time.